Hello, and welcome to the Emerging Consciousness Global Online Festival, a kaleidoscope of voices and perspectives on awakening. Here, we're gathering with transformative coaches, visionary artists, cultural creatives, an eclectic mix of wisdom keepers blended with colorful new voices in order to create a catalyzing space where curious people come for fearless and experiential learning. So welcome to this transpersonal movement to liberate minds and supercharge consciousness and activate the furthest reaches of our human potential so that we can co-create a more peaceful and evolved world. My name is Tami Mensh. I'm a transformative life and spiritual business coach, founder of the Kaleidoscope Lounge and Coaching, and creator and host of this event. I'm here to serve people on a journey to fullness of expression, joy, authenticity, and deep wisdom. Those brave souls who sense that change is imminent and long to connect with what makes them feel more fully alive and the gifts that they were born to bring into this world. And so today I'm really feeling like the source of emerging consciousness comes from our deep and inner wisdom. And that's why I'm so excited to have the pleasure of speaking today with Maya Luna, a poet, feminine wisdom teacher. And in this session where we talk about the return of the deep feminine and why that's such an important and powerful conversation to be having right now. So, hi, Maya Luna.
Hi, Tami. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you so much. I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you, then we'll get into it. Maya Luna is a poet and teacher of the lost feminine wisdom streams. Her poetry can be found in her book, Omega, Feral Secrets of the Deep Feminine, and her poetry album, Holy Darkness, a tantric opus. She's the creator of the Deep Feminine Mystery School, of which I've had the pleasure of some of her teachings, and what inspired me to ask her to be here today. So thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Feeling the power of what you're calling for in this emerging consciousness. This time of great change that we're inside of.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Well, I feel like we're at a critical mass point where evolution is speeding up. It has to speed up. We can't continue on with the same structures of consciousness and embodiment that we have been, the same value systems. We're being really backed into a corner in a way. And I think that being backed into a corner is scary and threatening in one sense. But if we look at it a different way, it's like we are being confronted with a very particular aspect of reality that is very connected to the feminine, actually, which is called groundlessness. It's the fact of the particular quality of reality that is constantly changing, constantly shifting, constantly morphing, and beyond our control. And that fact of the groundlessness of reality is something that human beings have, what I consider in my teachings, I call it, the colonizer or the conqueror consciousness. And this is something that lives literally inside of our bodies, our hearts, our senses, our perceptions, how we meet the moment, how we meet life, how we meet reality. It's a relationship to the feminine that is one of conquering, colonizing, controlling, dominating. And we literally can't do that anymore. We are being confronted with this profound limitation. in what we can control and make happen. And that's a very, very unique spiritual opportunity, because we can fight it and we can resist it and we can deny it and we can go into denial around it and we can defend against it, or we can soften and open and receive the what I feel is really the lost feminine wisdom streams, the feminine ways of knowing and perceiving reality that have been very lost on planet Earth because we've been more focused on what I would call a more masculine way of knowing and perceiving reality. And so the time is ripe, and that consciousness of the feminine is very, very alive and available and accessible in a way that I think it hasn't been for a long time because of the circumstances that we find ourselves inside.
When you say deep feminine,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean?
Yeah. So, one of the things that's interesting in talking about the feminine is that our language itself is built on linearity, logic, and rational thinking and reason, which I call more of like the masculine mind. So when we use language to talk about the feminine, it's a little bit tricky because she's almost like a different radio station that exists in a totally different paradigm than that which language has been created for. But if I were to talk about the deep feminine, what I mean, the deep feminine is a very sacred matrix running through creation. It is the spark of life, the spark of wisdom of life that's running through every plant, every animal, every tree, running through us. And it's like the light within matter, the sacred spark within matter, within us, within nature, within everything. The divine in density, right? And we have, as I mentioned a moment ago, really collectively, unconsciously inherited a way of perceiving and embodiment that has sort of blinded us to that reality. Maybe we believe in it in a conceptual way. Maybe we have an idea that, oh, I'm sacred and everything's sacred. But we've sort of lost and forgotten a lot of the doorways in and how we commune with that place, what I call the deep feminine current. And when we enter that place, it's funny because, you know, I've taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the deep feminine mystery school at this point. And one of the most common things that people say to me when they receive my teachings and my practices is it's like, I don't even have words for what this place is that you've helped me find, but it feels like home. It feels like I'm in touch with truth. It feels like I'm in intimate kind of wonder with the magic of being alive, the magic of aliveness, the magic of the moment in a direct, real way. And there's sort of no words. It's like, how do I describe this? I don't know what it is, but I know that it is so real when I experience it and I go there. It's very connected to the soul, I think, our experience of what we might call the soul. It's a place where when we inhabit it, there's an intimacy with not only the sacredness of life, but I think the magic and the meaning of life and what we're really here for. And that's something that we collectively are so hungry to remember. Right. And I really believe that the existential crisis of our planet, you know, is our collective disconnection from the deep feminine. I think that is the root of humanity's existential crisis, you know.
The imbalance of it, the and it's interesting that you said it's like wordless. You know, it's feeling, and when we were talking about your poetry, I couldn't find words to describe it. I just knew that it was a way that it made me feel. It made me connect.
How did it make you feel?
It was like an awakening to the source, right? And like and that was there, but I didn't know it was there.
Yes, and I love how you're pointing here, because again, there's a huge difference between our conceptual, spiritual, philosophical beliefs and the place that lives inside us that actually knows and can experience that knowing.
Right.
And it's so sweet to have that place touched. That is what I would call the deep feminine current.
Yeah. And when you were talking about groundlessness, just the idea of groundlessness, it feels so so scary, you know, to use that word.
Mhm.
But when you say it, it makes me feel like excited, you know,
Yeah,
like
talk about that. Let's talk about that,
yeah.
because groundlessness is terrifying to the ego.
Uh-huh.
The one that wants to dominate, conquer, be in control, be on top of things, hold on tight, have everything just how I think it should be.
Right.
Groundlessness is very exciting to the soul. Very exciting to the soul.
It is. It's like that point between, you know, life and death, where you know you're falling out of the plane and you're screaming and you're never been more alive. You know, this is
Yes. Well, and I think one of the interesting things about groundlessness is that it's actually just a fact of our existence. It is true that events in life unfold in a way that we cannot fully predict or control. There's a wildness to life, you know? So it's a fact. So it's like, well, what do we do with that fact? How do we meet that fact? How do we not make that fact wrong? Of course it's not wrong. It's part of the nature of existence, right? And this is again a very unconscious, subtle way that humanity has suppressed, demonized the feminine, because she is that wild churning, right? She is this constantly undulating impermanence of birth and death and change. And, you know, that groundlessness is part of what can really humble us into intimacy with life. That's the sacred invitation, is recognizing that yes, we have this incredible ability to innovate, um, to have an agenda and an intention for our life and what we do and what we create, what we make happen. And we're limited, and life will always surprise us. And some of those surprises are very painful and hard, and some of them are radical blessings. And I think what's so interesting about this time on planet Earth is that the principle of groundlessness is very hard to ignore now.
Mhm.
Like the events that are unfolding are so wild and so this, you know, it's the first time in I think a long time, certainly since I've been alive, where our notion of the future is so unknown. We do not know what the world is going to look like in a year or 2 years or 3 years. We can't just anticipate business as usual. And that is scary and threatening to the parts of us that didn't want to know that about reality. But again, it's a really sacred invitation to start to really open our bodies and our hearts and our consciousness to the wisdom and the gift of the feminine.
So
I
how
have
do,
a poem about
yeah,
that.
yes, please.
Okay. This is a poem from my book, Omega Feral Secrets of the Deep Feminine, and it's called The Goddess of Reality. And I think, Tami, when you reached out to me, this was the poem that really rocked you, that you
Oh,
were really
yeah.
excited about. So,
Any way that we should receive this?
good question. Yeah, listen with your toes and listen with your thighs and listen with your belly and listen with your womb and listen with your heart. Listen with your body and all the little cells in your body, not just your mind.
Great, beautiful.
Let it be known, I worship the goddess, the one with tangled hair where insects nest, the one with blood-soaked thighs, the one who crushes my concepts with her razor teeth and spits my mind into the wind. She shakes her belly to the beat of primordial passion and feasts on the meat of ignorance. She wanders in the garden with a basket woven with the chaos of stars. She is naked and savoring every petal and thorn. She churns the wheel of time and casts the seeds of manifestation without rhyme or reason. She is senseless and crazy, innocent and free. Her skin is the color of heartbreak and her eyes the sound of laughter. She takes no prisoners. She cannot be contained or rationalized. She won't conform to my ideas of what reality is or how things should be. Just when I think I have her under control, she takes me down. She will not be dominated. She always wins. She stomps to the beat and throws her hips. She is the prowl of panther and the leaping deer of supreme delight. Her hair smells of tobacco and pine. She carries a knife in her pocket and holds a lily in her hand. She is pure in heart. She is the darkness of thunder. She is the undercover agent of divine madness, whose ruthlessness is the compassion that severs my arrogance and undoes my separation, so that I may know her deeply and drink in the wild radiance of her holiness. With all that I am, I submit to her. With all that I am, I prostrate before her insane beauty. She demands the death of all my control. When I am humble and true, she comes to me. Dance, she says. Why aren't you dancing? I surrender all reason. She will not be tamed. My submission is my devotion. I have tried to control her in 10,000 ways, tried to seduce her into my happiness. Yet she is the grace that smashes all hope and opens up the blessed wound of living. When I am exhausted and weary, she brings me to my knees. Her muddy feet are the altar of worship, the palace of freedom where joy is born. I love her. This feral beast woman, spinning chaos and tenderness with her fingertips, whose tongue speaks no meaning, whose laughter is the rose of shameless beauty, whose smile is the sword that slays all striving. To the one who can never be possessed or contained, I submit. To the one who is drenched in the nectar of love. To the one who demands nothing less. To the goddess of reality, I dance with her because there is nothing left to do.
I'm so moved.
Mm.
What I'm feeling is I'm I'm tingling,
Mhm.
like my scalp,
Mhm.
and my heart is beating quicker.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that too.
Do you feel that when you read it?
Yeah, yeah, my heart is beating faster. Yeah. Yeah, there's a quickening. It's like entering the edge, like the razor's edge of the truth of reality. It's very alive and um, yeah, it's meeting the aliveness, the immediacy of the moment and of life. Feels like to me.
And I have to ask,
Mhm.
where did this birth from?
Mm.
What was what was going on in you that pulled these words out in such
Mm.
this way?
Mm. 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 I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. Um, the poems just come like a thunderstorm. But this particular frequency of this poem in particular is just something that's so dear to my heart. You know, just the groundlessness again. And I think this way that, you know, feminine wisdom is crazy wisdom. That's really the nature of it, which is why it's a totally different radio station than the logical, rational mind, which we could call more the masculine. And by the way, I always have to have a disclaimer here, which is like, I'm not saying that the feminine is better, right? Our capacity for logic, reason, rational thinking is beautiful and necessary and good and should never go away. It's more like we are profoundly imbalanced. And not only are we imbalanced, but we are hungry for the feminine. I mean, I really feel that on a global level. Like I said, the existential crisis of our age is the humanity's disconnection from the deep feminine current. So we want her, and yet we have just simply forgotten how to find her. And that's what I'm here for. But the crazy wisdom thing is just so, and that it's so in this piece, I think,
Yeah.
because the feminine is like all these things that to the rational, logical mind seem horrible and bad. Actually, if you kind of, it's like from the crazy wisdom perspective, they have these sacred invitations, right? It's like there's one line that I really love about, what is it? Her ruthlessness is the compassion. The ruthlessness is the compassion that severs my arrogance and undoes my separation, so that I may know her deeply and drink in the wild radiance of her holy mess, right? So, what a gift to have our arrogance severed and our separation undone, right? But it's through ruthlessness. So, like that.
Yeah, like that. Right on. And the that she's so misunderstood, you
That's
know.
right. That's right.
and,
That's
and you see, you know, so many women and they're losing their shit, or, you know, she's a hot mess or what, you know, whatever. And
yeah.
she's there what I'm honoring that, you know, like there's a realness, there's a fire, there's something that's coming out. What's the beauty in that, you know? And
I'm glad you mentioned the hot mess, because I think that that's also a new culture that's emerging right now, which is uh, ending the culture of shame and judgment around our humanity, and, you know, again, connecting it to groundlessness. Life, the nature of life, is that we all, no matter who we are, encounter heartbreak, failure, loss, devastation at some point in our life. We become a hot mess, you know, and to love each other there, and hold each other there, and to end the culture of shame and judgment around our own hot messness is, I think, really emerging right now too.
And you know what comes up for me is, you know, and I've asked this question through the how do we get people to see, you know, and over and over, well, it's ourselves, it's our own awakening, you know, and I know that it begins there. And I just feel like, what kind of spark can we light that will carry, you know, to other people, that men, you know, to start shifting the way that they're seeing this, or, you know, not just men, but, you know, to turn that
Yeah.
tide. How does come up with anything?
I know exactly how. So, yeah, first of all, that anti-feminine colonizer, conqueror embodiment and consciousness lives in men and women, really. I mean, it's really like, it's not just like men, it's men and women. And what I teach in my school, the Deep Feminine Mystery School, is how to undo that, actually. And there are various little doorways in our body and in our heart and in our senses where we are habituated. So, if I can just give a really simple example.
Please do.
Most people tend to live on the surface of their body and lean forward into the moment, which has a very, it's that impulse in us: do, take, conquer, get, figure out, get on top.
Great.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very subtle. Even in the way we look, we grab with our looking. And even just teaching people how to inhabit the back of their body and drop down into what I call the vertical moment, the depth of the moment rather than the horizontal moment, to perceive from the back of your eyes rather than reaching from the front of your eyes, we start to enter the deep feminine current. We start to have a totally different experience and quality of presence and contact with ourselves and with reality that's intimate and in touch with that sacred spark. So, what I'm really clear about is that a lot of this is entrainment. So when we start to, you're asking, like, how do we let people know about this?
Exactly.
When we are embodying it, when we are inhabiting that space, people start to entrain to it, you know, and then it's just sort of like a ripple effect. And I think I want to add to that and say, just circling back to the very beginning of our conversation, there's something that's breaking open right now with circumstances on the planet that is, it's sort of unstoppable. Like, you know, it doesn't necessarily require us figuring it out and making it happen. It is happening. And of course, we want to serve that in a really good way. And that's real too. But that's part of the feminine matrix of creation and the wisdom of the intelligence that's deeper than our own will. It's the same intelligence that makes the fruit on the tree. One day it becomes ripe enough to fall, you know, and it's just sitting there this whole time, gathering juice, gathering juice, gathering juice, and then one day it falls. That's the feminine. And I think that's another aspect that's contributing to our existential angst, is that when we don't know or remember how to rest down and into the deep feminine current, to that place of home, we really feel like we have to make everything happen. And if we don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. And the truth is, we're supported by this deeper matrix of intelligence that's woven through all of creation, that's working us, that's working life, that's profoundly merciful. And, it's very different than the idea of like a transcendent God that's, helping us or something. This is like creation itself, nature itself, and that implicit profound wisdom. That's also us, you know? And I have a very deep sense that until we as humans learn how to commune with nature again, right? Not just appreciate it mentally or understand the value of it, but actually find the place in ourselves that's resonating with the sacred core of nature, that level of respect, that's the only thing that's really going to shift how we honor our planet that's giving us life.
Finding myself going backwards and forwards right now. So I'm curious as to how you uncovered this current for yourself.
Mm.
Is the backwards.
Yeah. Mm. Hmm. It's interesting because I don't even think I don't have the kind of story where it was like, oh, I was like, you know, in corporate and like living this life, and then I had this away. It's sort of like I came in like this in a certain way. And I came in with this kind of knowing, and I came in certainly very embodied. I was a dancer as a child, and so very naturally embodied and in touch with embodiment and embodied reality. And then, I had a sense of like something's off here, like something's not quite right with this world and the way everyone is doing everything. And I met my first real feminine teacher, Shakti Milan, in 2011, and she was a huge catalyst for me. And prior to that, it was a lot of my own explorations, and for a long time, it was a lot of exploration in sensuality, and touch work and body work, and finding that really sacred way that I could inhabit my body in sensuality that would sort of awaken this presence that we could maybe call the goddess, this full, rich, loving, embodied, soulful presence that we get to be and share with each other. And I think the other thing I want to say about this whole feminine thing is that yes, we're collectively very disconnected, but one of the blessings about returning and getting back in contact with the feminine is that it's actually very organic and natural and innate in us. So it's not like learning a skill that like is so out there and like we have to like train and it's actually very organic to who we are as human beings. We just have forgotten, and once we start to remember, it's just like, oh yeah, that's some part of us knows how to be there, is what I'm saying. There's a naturalness and an organicness. So yeah, I don't know how I came to be what I am. It's partly, devotion and practice and teachers, and partly just kind of I came in like this. Yeah.
And do you find that there is a ripple effect happening that more and more people are discovering this within themselves, and that
Yeah,
change?
I do. I do see that there is something happening right now. And it's, I think, like all big leaps in human consciousness, I'm thinking about that time in evolution where there's a name for it anthropologically, but it was like, humans went from like simple tool use and like, whatever, to like within 100, for, this was like for thousands and thousands of years. And then within 100 years, it was like language and pottery and art and, and it's like, what happened during that time? We don't really know. There's different theories. Why was there such an acceleration? I think we're inside of something like that right now. And I think that with any acceleration in consciousness, it's turbulent. It's really turbulent, and it's like the ground is quaking. And of course, we're like clinging and we're, all of this stuff. But, and it's interesting too, because, there's all kinds of political stuff around like COVID and the pandemic and the lockdowns and the quarantines and everything. But I will say that for me, when it first hit, I just felt, oh, she's back. And I could feel it. And I think, again, it's crazy wisdom kind of thing. And it's partly, the radical halting of the world that happened and still is happening in a way, like just like the brakes on yin pulling inward, all that conqueror, colonizer, building, that whole impulse just had to like stop. And of course it's complex and like economy and there's so much, but on like a mystical consciousness level, crazy wisdom level, I do feel that there's a massive pattern disrupt happening that has to do with the feminine returning.
Yeah, that the Mother Earth was saying, "Hey, hold on, I'm done. My carrying capacity for all of this, I am more powerful. It's time to shift, and I'm in charge."
Yes, that's right. And I remember feeling that too, like the first about a year ago,
Yeah.
11 months ago.
Yeah.
That quiet that happened for a moment, and like you could almost feel the earth like kind of coming back up and like boom, 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 boom,
I had that same moment. Yeah.
You had that?
Yeah, I really did.
Wow. Wow.
I felt it was a major download. I was like, oh, wow, I get this on a really deep level. I felt it, So where I'm curious about, like, is to hear your thoughts on, like, let's say this woman from your poem, or this this feminine, deep feminine, comes alive and is pulsating and living and reigning and all of her glory. What would this world look like?
Hmm. So beautiful. I love that question. Wow. Well, first of all, one of the things that I see and sense and perceive is coming in the future is a major shift in women. I want to say becoming, but it's also returning to the center of spiritual life. I think that women will be, and this isn't necessarily matriarchy, like women are in power, women are in charge, but for the spiritual life, I think that women are going to hold that role as oracle, spiritual teacher, medicine transmitter. I think we're going to see a return to that, to women holding that, and grandmothers too, you know. I think that certainly the feminine also takes us into that unified field of the deep honoring of not only the earth, but of the unifying link of humanity, that sacred spark of the soul that is the one pulse, that is the one heartbeat, across all races, across all genders, across all religions, you know. So I see that awakening of the true remembrance of the sacredness of each other and life, not as a concept, but as something that we get to experience in our bodies. And all of the ways that that can impact and ripple out in how we love each other and honor, especially those that have not been honored, Indigenous people, Indigenous cultures, all of the repair that needs to happen from the legacy of the colonizer, conqueror, dominator paradigm, And I think really, sacred sexuality is a big part of it too, in the real true sense of the word, not as a fancy technique-based thing, but really returning to the innocence of our bodies and our capacity to love each other through the sacrament of pleasure and sensuality. That has always been archetypally through human history, prior to patriarchy, that revelation of sacred pleasure was very much a part of our reality as humans, before we had the demonization of sex and the demonization of the body and the loss of connection with the feminine. They go hand in hand, the rise of violence and the rise of war consciousness and the rise of colonizer consciousness goes hand in hand with the devaluing or forgetting of sacred sexuality, of the innocence and purity of our bodies and our hearts to commune with ourselves and each other in that way. Because it is, again, our bodies matter, the divine in density. This is where the feminine makes herself known, right? Through our direct experience of the body.
Yeah, the erotic has changed.
Yes.
And
I see that as one of the things that really is making a comeback right now. A lot of people are waking up to sacred sexuality right now.
Say a little bit more about what sacred sexuality looks like, or feels like, or how you see it.
Interesting question. I think that sacred sexuality is inhabiting the body and the innocence of the body, and allowing the wisdom of the instinctual body, right? Not the agenda, not the intention, not the forcing, not the making, but the true meeting of other in presence and with an innocent heart, with what I call virginal presence, like really awake to the moment, as though this moment is the first time, because it is the first time. It's always the first time. Every moment is the first time. Meeting sex from that place, while also, embodied and surrendered to the instinctual body and how the body knows how to love, knows how to meet the moment with other, knows how to meet the body of other as the beloved, as a physical manifestation of the divine. And the quality of presence that awakens when we approach sex in that way, the quality of consciousness that emerges, is again unspeakable and unnameable. Right? It takes us into the heart of the mystery in a certain way, where we get to taste the truth up close.
Do you feel that that couples that have been together for a long time can really refine each other again in that mystery of the first time?
I love that question. That's so beautiful. Yes. So the colonizer, conqueror, dominator consciousness has infected our sexuality in a way that has produced what I would maybe call like porn consciousness, right? And it's tricky. This is a delicate area because after so many years of sexual shame and sexual oppression, there's been a swing back of like liberation, like, yeah, like do what you want. If it's consensual and it's safe, like go for it. So it's not that I want to necessarily shame people exploring in whatever way they're called to explore, but the issue of, I think what happens for a lot of couples that have been together for a long time, and this is seen even in books like Mating in Captivity. I don't know if you know about that book.
Mm-mm.
It's a book that explores this kind of unfortunate paradox in humans that has to do with our evolution and all these things, where our eroticism, like our turn on, that really passionate, like, which is really alive in like the beginning of a relationship, diminishes when we have secure attachment, when our partner becomes like family. So then we have this beautiful relationship where there's trust and there's love and there's safety, but then there's no eroticism, right? And on the other hand, there's no trust, there's no safety, there's no foundation, but it's really exciting and a turn on, right? So it's like, oh no, what do we do with this? So what I believe is that the opportunity here, and this is more the sacred sexuality that I was describing, is actually to find a doorway in sex that is not actually about the supercharged, super intense, passionate. This is more quiet and presenceful. And there's something that can emerge there that can't emerge in the intense throes of passion. It's a different quality of presence. And I think if we're really attached to sex being about that super exciting, erotic, passionate, hunger thing, if that's what we think sex is and has to be, then especially couples that have been together for a long time are going to find themselves at some point being like, well, sex is dead. No, it's not. It's just that particular quality is no longer here. And perhaps instead of figuring out a way to get back to it, there's a totally different opportunity, totally different doorway, that doesn't quite have that rush, but is very profound in what it can open. And I've had that, and I've experienced that, even with people that I haven't had, really, really long term. It is possible to enter sex through that quality of deep listening, deep presence, deep, almost quiet reverence. And a lot emerges there. But again, mostly the doorway is feminine embodiment. I was talking about the resting into the back body, the softening of the gaze, the letting go of the belly, we start to touch into a different radio station there. And sex is a really beautiful, potentized place where we can be that for each other and explore it together.
So just that beingness.
Yes.
Together, is sacred sexuality, as you would.
Ah, that's such a beautiful way to say it. Yeah, entering sex from that beingness. Wow, yeah, beautiful. I feel like I want to say another poem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You okay?
Great.
This whole thing about the consciousness of the colonizer and the conqueror and the dominator, and that part of us that is paradoxically disconnected from the feminine, resisting, trying to get on top of the feminine, but also deeply hungry and longing for the feminine, but doesn't know how to get there. This has really influenced our idea of what power is. Right? So, what is power from the perspective of the feminine, from the crazy wisdom of the feminine? And how can that quality of power support and feed this new emerging consciousness on the planet? That's what this poem is about. True power is not power over. It is not the dominator paradigm. It is not the polarity of powerful and powerless. True power erupts from the deep underground. It rises up from the earth to dance inside your vessel. It is the pulsation of creation, wed to the intuitive spark of this moment. It is crazy wisdom, ferocious innocence. It is free from agenda and surrendered to outcome. It arises spontaneously from the heart of the mystery. It is a gush of creativity, a momentary potency. It is a wave in the ocean. It belongs to no one. It is a current you can ride. It comes and goes like the wind. To know this power, you must become permeable and open to receive. Like a tiger in the bush, listen, listen. With every cell of your being, listen. In the moment of that pounce, self and object disappear. In the seizing of that current, only pure life remains. See the animals now. Maybe having animals.
Say that again.
Maybe having animals become our teachers is part of this too. Animals are very in touch with the feminine current and the pulse of that feral, like instinctual knowing.
I love that. That it's not this power over. It's a gush. It's something that you can ride. You know, this current. And
when we open to receive, and I think that's really the thing, is we've been entrained through generations, through our body and our hearts and our senses, not to receive, but to penetrate or to resist. The art of receiving through the body, heart, mind is a lost art. And when we remember how to receive, wow, we get to taste. I think the real of power, the real of love. That's where we touch what I call the deep feminine current.
so beautiful. I mean, I'm full and alive and feel really, really here. You know, I really, really do. And I just really want to, you know, thank you for your words that you express, the way that you put this energy out, you know, so that we can all taste it and feel it in our own bodies and see it around us and wake up to it. So thank you for that.
That was really fun to talk with you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that hasn't been said that you feel that you want to say?
I suppose I could just, plug the Deep Feminine Mystery School.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. So the Deep Feminine Mystery School is the location for all of my teachings. deepfemininemysteryschool.com. I have poetry there, videos, pre-recorded courses you can buy, and upcoming courses all the time. Some are just for women and some are for all genders. Right now I'm just finishing up a 6-week course called Holy Fire, Resurrecting the Deep Feminine, which I run a couple of times a year. And this time we had over 200 women.
Amazing.
So it's really exciting what's happening right now.
So women only, you said.
Holy Fire is, but I do have, the course that you were a part of was all genders, and that's for purchase right now on my website too. But yeah.
I'm happy to hear that, and I find it exciting to see the deep feminine awakening in, a non-binary way throughout so many people. So,
Yeah, because it really is not about gender and it's not about sex.
Right.
Everyone is hungry to remember the feminine within and without. And we have a lot of ideas about the feminine that are very gender based, but it's not about that at all. She's a blessing for men and women and all genders.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this conversation and getting to know you better. And thank you for your contribution to this event and through your work. So thank you. Thank you.
Really good to share with you.
Me too.